Hi, everyone. Let's chat about 7 lessons that healing has taught me on this Thursday evening. So happy Thursday. If you are joining live, welcome. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. My name is Marissa Price. I am a trauma informed healing practitioner. I am a certified facilitator, helping Black women and femmes rise from traumatic experiences, creating safe places on the internet for us to process trauma, for us to come back into our full authenticity, to do things like restore ourselves, to carve out space for ourselves to rest, to view our labor as something that is sacred. And so, if that resonates with you, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Marissa Price Heals. It's also streaming on LinkedIn. So, yeah, you can head on over to YouTube and subscribe if you're interested in this type of content. And this is actually my 300th video, which is wild. Um, right. I am an introvert. I was just thinking about this today. I'm an introvert, right? I am someone who doesn't really prefer talking outside of what I do for a living. And so this has been an exercise in growth. And so I just want to thank you first for everyone who has supported my videos, who has commented, who has liked, who has shared your experience. I have grown so much, right? I have learned from hearing the stories that you all have shared around how you have healed and are healing, right? The different tools that you're using, the different experiences that you've had. I started my YouTube channel documenting my journey, which I had no clue at the time, right? After a toxic job experience, that it would lead me on this path. And I think that's the kind of the magic and the beauty of sharing what's happening, of sharing your experiences, right? Other people are like drawn to you who have experienced similar things, and that can do a lot with your own personal healing journey. And something that I support clients now with through freelancing coaching, which I offer through healing support, one on one healing support. And so, if you're interested in any of those things, let me put my links in the chat. Here is the application for healing support. I do have one additional spot open for the fall, and then I'll open my slots up for the winter. But that is the link. If you'd like to work with me one on one in a healing capacity, um, I do have. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Um, if you like one on one support with freelancing, I do offer that as well. I might have to get that in a second, but it's in my link tree. If you're able to find my link tree in the description of YouTube, please click that if you're interested in freelancing coaching as well. Right. And so 300 videos. So thank you so much again for everyone who has supported this journey, who has seen me right when I was first recording videos and just kind of being very vulnerable. Those videos were for me. They were for me to document my own journey, to see kind of my process of healing and evolution as I was in a toxic job experience and wondering what the just happened to me. So, hello, Colette. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate this. Please subscribe to Colette's channel, Colette Elizabeth. She has a Friday Night Live tomorrow. But Colette was someone, right, who, I was watching her videos when my journey just started on YouTube um, and sharing, right, in her comment section these things were happening to me. I was dealing with these things in the workplace. And I think that's the beauty of so many of us opening up and sharing our journeys. We see that we're not alone and it feels safe, right? For me to say, oh, this happened to me as well. And we're also able to externalize what's happening to us. So it doesn't feel like we're the only one in the world experiencing a toxic job, right? And trying to make our exit plan. We have so many of us, right, sharing our stories. And Colette is one of those amazing creators on YouTube who is doing that. So thank you so much, Colette. I appreciate this. Right. And so all of these things, right? Healing, going from our healing from burnout to now incorporating rest, healing from perfectionism, which I've shared on my channel, healing from overachieving, very real. All of these things are now on my YouTube channel, right? Which feels a little, it can feel a little bit strange. Again, as someone who's pretty private, who is an introvert, right? I would have never imagined I would be sharing my journey publicly in this way. But there was something to it, right? There was something to it because I've made so many amazing connections. I've been able to see the impact of the work that I have been able to do, right? That I've been fortunate enough to be able to do with Dr. Kamani, my collaborator on the Job Liberation Virtual Summit. Seeing the impact that we've made globally has been something I never could have imagined. And I think that's again the beauty of, as it feels comfortable and as you feel ready, starting to open up a little bit and share your story about what you've been through, because other people will share back, right? It's a reciprocal process. Thank you, Daniela Elevates. I appreciate this. Good evening. Congratulations on 300 videos, Marissa. I appreciate this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to see you here. Thank you. So very proud of you, little sister Harriet. I appreciate this. I really do. Thank you. Um, and again, when I started this journey on YouTube, right, it was a lot. It was a lot that I was dealing with, trying to process. Again, as I've shared very publicly, the phenomenon of going from pet to threat in the workplace. So pouring so much of yourself into a role, into all the education that I had done, that I had accumulated, and then kind of seeing it end up being what it was, right, was a difficult process. And I'm thankful that I documented that journey, because now I'm able to look back and be like, oh, wow, I've grown a lot. My voice has recovered, right? There was a point in that experience where I was unable to really speak fully because of the trauma that I had experienced. And so to see that there's another side, right, to the trauma that you're experiencing if you're still in a toxic environment. There is another side. I just did a video on this. There is another chapter to your story. You just got to flip the page. Sometimes we think that the chapter is the story. The chapter is just a chapter, right? You got to get to the next chapter. And so if that is helpful, just seeing, right, that, I know I go back and watch my videos like, okay, I got this, because I was able to get from that point to now, right? And I want to thank you all again so much for your support in this journey. United in Grief 1111. Thanks for your vulnerability. I appreciate this. Thank you for being here. Okay. So some lessons that I came up with as I was thinking about it. Number one being my energy is sacred, right? So healing has really taught me my energy is not infinite. Not everyone gets access to it. It is sacred. It is divine. I think when we have grown up in environments where we have had the messaging so often that has affected our self-worth, our self-esteem, having to rebuild this as an adult is not an easy process necessarily, but it is rewarding when you're able to see how sacred your energy is, right? How sacred your time is. And so healing from things like people pleasing, which I've talked about, creating boundaries, creating energetic limits for myself. Again, viewing my energy as sacred, that was the wound that I had to heal. And I'm still in the process of healing. And it can be difficult when we receive these messages that tell us that our worth is low, right? Something I've had to heal from. Yeah, and it's a process over time. So if you're in that process, please give yourself grace, compassion, because a lot of these wounds are things that are years, sometimes decades old. And now we're having, like, at this point as adults, to have to repair those, to have to rebuild our sense of self. And so, yes, learning how to say no. And thank you to Glamazini, aka Rushni Cope, for saying your yes is important too when it comes to boundaries. So the things that you want to do, the things that fill you up, the things that bring you joy, that's also a part of knowing that your energy is sacred, right? What things do you really want to do? And knowing that you're able to do that, right? That you have permission to do the things that really light you up, instead of what we're taught that we just have to settle, right? That we just have to expect kind of something that doesn't feel aligned with who we are or what we're here to do. And just going towards the thing that really makes you feel full, and knowing that that is absolutely why you are here. Because again, your energy is sacred. You are welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for joining, Darlene Gray. Thank you, Marissa. I needed this. I am on the healing path too. Yes. Yeah. It is a winding journey, something that continues to evolve for me, right? And there's never a point where it feels like I'm healed because there will be a new wound that pops up. There'll be something else that I have to turn my attention to, that I have to explore a little bit deeper to heal that part, right? And so I think viewing healing as that, as a journey, versus how sometimes it's presented as you get to this point where everything is cool, everything is healed, right? You have no more wounds. That's just not how life works. Life will continue to create new wounds, and also past wounds will be reopened. And so giving yourself that level of grace and compassion. This is a constant journey, one that should be joyful, one that should incorporate ease, right? All these things. And it's lifelong. And it's lifelong. Yeah. And so another lesson, right? People will always want my labor. Again, working on the Job Liberation Virtual Summit, which we are planning the third one at the moment, which will be in May 2026, has opened my eyes. Hearing these stories of Black women globally about the different ways that our labor has been exploited in these positions that we're in over a long, long time, and having to again view our energy as sacred, view our labor as something that is extremely valuable versus what other people regard it as, right? And I think other people know how valuable it is too. And it's a process of gaslighting, right? That they tell us that it's worth nothing, that we just have to accept anything that comes our way. Part of healing is recognizing, no, how valuable your labor is, your time, your energy, what you contribute to this world. We have often been socialized to serve everyone. I did a video on self sacrifice, which I'm unlearning to fix problems. I will be talking about healing from codependency, which is huge, and performing for other people for this sense of external validation, right, outside of ourselves. And healing has taught me, right, trying to prove my worth through productivity, through output is a losing battle, because the bar can always be moved when we're taught to seek these things externally, our worth, our value, that places it in someone else's hands, right? That they can tell us that we're not worthy, that we're not valuable. Um, and part of my healing journey I've had to rebuild that sense of self within so that it's rooted, right? It's unshakable. So no matter if I find myself in an environment like that again, that experience won't be able to shake me in the way that it did before, because I'm now rooted in my value, viewing my labor again as something that's extremely worthy. Yes, Colette says yes, they will always want our labor at a discounted rate or free. Thank you for this. It's true. Yeah. Oof. Discounted rate or free. That is so true. Yes. Ooh, that's bringing up a lot. Um, and again, the process of gaslighting, right? Which is something I've had to heal from. Being in a role where I had to push for something that should have been given to me, right? With the things that I was doing. And having that process of gaslighting can really do a number on your sense of self-trust, self-esteem, self-worth, when other people have tried to poke holes in how valuable your labor is, your time, your energy, your skill set. And again, really having to establish a force field around that so that it can't be touched, it can't be compromised, it can't be questioned by anyone, because it's so deeply rooted and ingrained down. That's been part of my healing journey. And so if you're in this process too of people have maybe tried to question the value of your labor, what you contribute, your skill set, right? Knowing that is so extremely valuable, right? And that's why they try to do this entire process of gaslighting. of trying to convince us that it's worth nothing, that we just have to accept anything. And so many of us are challenging or pushing back on that notion, again, rooted in oppression, rooted in systemic, intersecting systems of oppression that are telling us these messages um, that we know. We feel it in our bodies, right? When we're disrespected, when someone tries to devalue what we bring to the table, we feel that physically. And so that means, right, it's not true, this message that we're supposed to be able to just adopt, right, that it's worth nothing. It's like, no, our bodies are telling us, no, you're disrespecting me. You're undervaluing my labor, and that's not right. And so really leaning into that truth has been extremely healing. All these things go hand in hand, and we have to unlearn all of them. Thank you. That's so true. They do. Yep. And then once you unlearn one thing, you're able to see like the connections to another thing. Has anyone else had that experience? Like understanding, oh, this was what was really happening, right, in this workplace, in this environment, in this relationship. And now I'm having to scan back through all of these other experiences and I'm able to see the connecting points. That's what was happening there. That's what was happening there, right? My labor was being devalued. My energy was not being viewed as sacred. And there are these through lines through our experiences that once we're able to connect them, it's like we have these realizations and we have the ability to like preserve our labor, our sacredness at all costs. Now I see the through line. Now I see so many people have been doing this throughout my life. I'm able to guard it now at this point, having gone through that. So I appreciate you saying that. That's so true. Ask Beverly, hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Yes. Okay, lesson 3. What I do is not who I am, something I'm still unlearning, right? And so for a long time, as I have talked about before, achievement was my identity. So as a lifelong overachiever, right, straight A student, all these awards, all these rewards that were given to me for often pushing my body past the point where it was saying slow down, right? But I was getting rewarded for this. Again, externally, the praise that we receive, the validation, these things are real when we are overachieving, when we are pushing ourselves past the point of exhaustion. And so healing has taught me to begin to separate my identity, right, from the things that I do for other people, from the roles that I fulfill for other people. Because I'm a whole person, right? If I have this role or if I don't. I have likes, dislikes, hobbies, right, outside of this role that I fulfill for other people. And that process can be easier said than done, right? Because we have been socialized so often to attach our identity to what we do. And so when we find ourselves in a toxic work environment, or we find ourselves experiencing, right, a layoff, if our identity has been tied to our job, our role that we fulfill for other people, the level of grief, right, that can come up because those have been so intertwined can be very deep, right? And so beginning as a process over time to separate what I do from who I am has been so, so necessary, right? And so my worth as a person does not require me to be productive. I don't have to do task after task after task, right? I don't have to volunteer for all these opportunities. I am worthy because I am. And that may be a helpful affirmation to repeat to yourself. If you are someone who is also healing from overachieving, from people pleasing, that your worth is inherent, right? Just because you're here, you're worthy, right? That who you are is enough. Even when you rest, even when you take your time, even when you slow down, even when you can't do the task, you're still worthy. You're inherently worthy. And what you do is not who you are. Those are two separate things. Going along with that, right? Rest is essential. And so rest is not a luxury. It is not a reward either for pushing yourself past the point of exhaustion, for ignoring your body's signals. It is a necessity to preserve your life force, right, on Earth. All living things have to rest. We are no different. And so just learning that I don't need to earn rest to get to a certain point, right? I need rest. I have to rest. I have to slow down. I have to move at a slower pace in order for this life journey to be sustainable. And so if you're here live, if you're watching the replay, just thinking about, right, as you are on this path, what it feels like to now listen to your body's signals, to slow down, to rest, to recognize your inherent worth outside of what you do for other people. That has been such a transformative, difficult process, right? It's been over the past about 3 years at this point that I've been on this journey of really, again, separating who I am from what I do, from healing those deep wounds of overachieving, performing for other people, seeking validation externally, to really rebuilding a sense of inherent internal self-worth. And so, yeah, I would love to hear from you. If you would like to share either in the comments, if you're watching the replay, or here live, how has that journey been for you? Because I know I'm not alone in healing from overachieving. And again, when we have received rewards for so long outside of ourselves for doing these things, for pushing, for excelling at any cost, it can be difficult to now detach who you are from these rewards, because sometimes the rewards will stop, right? And I talked about this in a past live, that that having something to replace that with, because it's often like a dopamine hit that we receive when we push ourselves past this point where we receive this reward, right? It's a chemical reaction that happens within us. And so what are we replacing that with as we are incorporating rest, as we're slowing down, as we're detaching who we are from what we do? That could be something to sit with too. Colette says, after retiring from a very toxic job, untethering my identity from title as a manager was very difficult, but has been necessary to begin my healing process. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Ooh, untethering my identity from title. Ooh. Thank you so much. United in grief. Yes. The first people tend to ask is, what do you do? So we do really tie our identity in with our careers, jobs, roles. Absolutely. Yes. To your point, yes. Receiving that question so often, right? What do you do? Where do you work? Um, that's so real. And on this journey of having to detach who I am from what I do, that has been so clear, right? All these questions that we get that kind of reinforces this thing that we're trying to unlearn. It can be difficult. I appreciate you saying that. As Beverly says, I'm on my own healing path. I have disconnected from a toxic person. Now, after not talking to them, all their dysfunction is downloading in my brain. The hurt they caused and I excuse is clear. I appreciate you sharing this. That's very real. Yes. After disconnecting, as you said, from a toxic person, a toxic environment, sometimes our brains, our bodies now have the space to process what happened to us in that environment, where we could have been shut off as a survival response within that environment. And that was the case for me too, right? Remembering some of the things that were said, done after I left. And so having to give myself that level of grace, rest, um, to right process what happened to me. Now that I have the space to really understand, and again, externalizing what happened to you can be helpful too. I appreciate you sharing that. Colette says, yes, Marissa, it is. It's like a dopamine boost. You probably know this already, but I just learned about toxic validation. I didn't know about this. That's a new term to me. Toxic validation. Yes. It is a dopamine hit. It is. When we're overachieving, when we're seeking outside of ourselves, when we're being rewarded, right, through praise, through people telling us good job, all these things that we receive externally, for pushing ourselves, for not resting, for ignoring our body signals, these things are like creating a chemical response within our bodies. They're giving us this boost of feel good chemicals, right? And so when we begin to detach our identity from what we do, what are we replacing that with? Something I've had to ask myself. So instead of seeking validation externally, can I invite in an activity that brings me joy? Can I dance? Can I draw to give me that same sense of joy, that same kind of dopamine boost, right? But now I'm not seeking that externally from someone else. I'm creating it within myself. So that can be something, yeah. And I feel like that can be a topic I'll talk about in the future too. The dopamine rush from overachieving. Yes. But I'm curious to learn more about toxic validation, Colette. I've never heard that term. It's got my wheels turning. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, yes. Boundaries are sacred acts of self trust. So, boundaries are not about pushing people away necessarily. Sometimes you need to, but they're how we stay connected to our sense of safety, our sense of self trust, our body signals. And so every time, excuse me, y'all, every time I honor a boundary, I tell my nervous system, I can trust you, right? I can trust myself. And so that has been critical for me to learn that I can establish boundaries, that I can say no to things that I don't want to do, that I can say yes to things that really bring me a sense of joy and kind of light me up. And that I have the control over that. I have the sovereignty, right, to establish these things within my life, to kind of like vet what's coming in instead of everything just getting access to my energy, to my time. Again, to my first lesson, having to view my energy really for the first time as sacred, my time as sacred, right? What I'm contributing to the world as sacred. And knowing that not everyone gets access to that. Not everyone deserves to be close to that. Something I've had to learn. Colette says, I learned about it in terms of the toxic boss receiving validation for their toxic behavior. Interesting. Let me write this down. I'm going to have to look into this toxic validation. That is so interesting. Yeah, because that happens so often in workplaces, toxic workplaces. The toxic people are given the positions, they're promoted. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing this, Colette. Thank you. As Beverly says, it's so interesting that when we make our boundaries known, the people who benefited from our lack of boundaries are not happy to this. Yes. 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 Yeah. Because there are people in our lives, as you said, who benefit from us not having boundaries. And so when we begin to establish these parameters for ourselves, that can create a response in people. That can create a feeling of, I always expected to be able to receive this from you, right? And now I'm upset that I can't. That can create a sense of backlash, and that's very real. And so I think preparing for that potential response, if you've been able to pick up on someone who is benefiting from your lack of boundaries as you are on this journey of establishing boundaries, maybe for the first time, kind of maybe even scripting can be helpful, right? If you know how this person operates, if you know what their response may be, scripting your response to theirs. Because it can be one of backlash. If people are used to just getting your energy anytime they want it, getting your time, getting you to show up for this thing, and using guilt often as a way to get you to do things. When you begin to heal from some of these deeper wounds that makes us feel like we can't have boundaries, right? those people may have that response. And so that's something to be prepared for. I appreciate you sharing that. Hello, Sophia F. Yes. So happy to finally make it to one of your lives, because even if for a short while, because of your work. Thank you. How has your healing journey impacted your physical health? Ooh, thank you for this question. Um, I think they've gone hand in hand. And to this question, like something that just occurred to me, I think that's why I'm speaking more about somatic healing, which is just healing of the body, because it has been through establishing boundaries, viewing my energy as sacred, right? All these things I just walked through, resting, that I've been able to also heal physically. So it's not just like the mental health impacts of the experience that I had, which are very real, healing from those, but also like feeling it physically within my body, that I feel like I'm really healing at this point, incorporating things like breath work, grounding, gentle movement, dancing, right? Drawing, music, all these things that have really like have a physical element to them. I think those have been the key to my healing on this journey. And so I appreciate that question. Hello, hello, B Dog. Thank you for joining. Okay. Lesson 6, healing happens in the small moments, right? So, not in these grand breakthroughs that we're often taught to seek or hold up on social media, but really in the small moments, right? How gently you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, when you say something or don't say something that you wish you would have. Um, this is the case for me as someone who's like still recovering, still healing from overthinking, replaying things constantly in my head, and now realizing that, oh, I can stop that process. I don't have to continue that process. I can substitute this internal voice of criticism with one that is supportive, with one that is uplifting. And I think through my own healing journey, like my group healing programs have come out of that. And so I did one earlier this year called Silence Your Inner Critic, another one called Regulate to Reclaim, and now the third one, right, Rested and Restored, which is open for enrollment. We start on Sunday, and I'll link this in the chat if you'd like to join us. Um, but I think all of these, as I'm reflecting, have come out of my own experience, right, of learning to silence my inner critic, which is still a process, to invite in a more compassionate way of talking to myself, again, as an overachiever, recovering overachiever. That was often the way that I did tasks so often, that I accomplished these things, was by like talking very harshly to myself internally. And so it's not something that you could necessarily see from the outside, because I was able to do the projects, to get the rewards, all these things externally. But internally, it was not a good time, because what I was using to get to that point was detrimental to me, right? To my being, to my sense of self. And so having to like reprogram in that sense that I can still get things done. I can still, right, be a business owner. I can still do all these things without talking to myself harshly. I don't have to do that. I can let that go. I can adopt a new voice that is one that is supportive, that is uplifting, that is comforting, that is gentle, right? And that power is in my hands. And so even recognizing that we don't have to keep repeating these messages to ourselves that maybe other people told us, other people talk to us like that we now have the power to talk to ourselves in a completely different way. So yes, yes, you're so welcome. Thank you for that question. Hey, Michelle, overthinker too. Yes, yes. Oof. I'm still healing, still recovering. It's a journey. I appreciate you sharing that. Right. And so it's the pause before saying yes. So this can be another way that healing can happen in the small moments. So pausing before you say yes, or before you commit to a task, a project. Checking in with your body. How does it feel? Does it resonate? Does it feel aligned? And if not, knowing that you have the power to say no, right? Or to do it in a different way, or to tell people that you need support, resources. Um, and again, being prepared for the response, because I think that can cause a lot of anxiety. Scripting is a really great tool, like a therapeutic tool. So, scripting, right, the person's potential response to your boundary, to you saying, I can't do that anymore. So that it's not going to catch you like off guard, and you already have the tools to navigate what the response can be. Um, that can be helpful. So healing is in a practice over time, not in perfection. So again, releasing perfectionism, releasing overachieving, and just knowing that this is really a daily practice. There's no other way around it. Healing is a daily practice, right? One that's not going to feel joyful all the time, although joy should be a part of healing. Um, it's not going to feel easy every day, although ease should be part of the healing journey. It's going to feel different every single day. And to know that you have the toolkit to return to, which is what I'm focused on equipping, right? Clients, people who participate in my group programs with a healing toolkit over a lifetime that you're able to return to. So even when you find yourself in difficult moments, even when you start to repeat messages to yourself that are highly critical and you're trying to unlearn that, knowing that that is part of the journey too, right? And that you can always return to practices that ground you, that are compassionate, that are gentle, that do reaffirm your self-worth. Even if you find yourself kind of engaging in these behaviors that you're trying to unlearn, trying to release, that's part of the journey. And it's not going to be the same every single day, right? So just again, giving yourself grace, compassion, allowing yourself to explore with different healing tools too. Breath work, play, dance, creativity, right? Going outside in nature, taking care of yourself, hydrating, right? Again, viewing your life force, your energy as so incredibly sacred that it needs to be preserved for the longest time possible has been key in my own healing journey. Hello, Faithful D. Jones. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Hey, yes. Sophia says, I'm aware it takes time and healing happens in the small moments. Yes. How do you not let yourself get frustrated during the early days of healing and be kind to yourself and embrace the small wins? Ooh, that's a really good question. Thank you. I think, again, grace. Viewing myself as a younger version of myself has been helpful in this process too. So when I do make a mistake, when I do get frustrated with myself, um, having a visual of myself as a younger version, right? Giving myself a hug, right? All these things that we're told to do, breath work, but doing it as the younger version of myself. So giving yourself that level of grace, compassion, care that a lot of us did not receive right at an early age, knowing that we can still provide that to ourselves now. It's not too late. Um, and so envisioning yourself as a child can be helpful. Having a sense of humor has been so helpful for me on this journey. Just laughing when I'm like, am I really doing that again? Did I really just teach a full course about silence your inner critic and I'm still like experiencing criticism eternally? Yeah, that's still happening, right? And so just having that sense of this is life. It's a journey over time. It's going to have ups and downs. There are going to be days when it feels easier to do and some days where it feels more difficult to do. And that's just the journey. And so compassion, humor, inner child work can be helpful. And again, like you said, embracing the small wins. So literally like celebrating yourself. If there's something that brings you joy, a task that you like doing, taking yourself out on a date, when you notice that you've accomplished this thing, when you notice that you're talking to yourself more kindly, like literally celebrating yourself for these things along the way, because those count too. That is the journey. The small wins along the way is the healing journey. So thank you. As Beverly says, yes to the pause before saying yes, because the answer may end up being no. Really important for me. Yes. Pausing before saying yes. Oof. Yes, that's so important. And I wish I had known this right earlier on, but it's never too late. Again, to have these realizations, to know that you can take time to pause. We might feel pressure externally from some people, right? Who it may feel, they may feel uncomfortable by the time we need to process, to take. Um, and so that's something to keep in mind. Again, scripting for a potential response and viewing yourself as the priority here, right? As the main person who deserves to be preserved, knowing that you can take a pause, right? I need time to think about this. I need a day to get back with you before I'm able to confirm if I'm able to do this. And then really checking in with your body. Does this feel right? Does this feel aligned? Right? Do I need to go back and tell this person I can't do this, or I need to do it in a different capacity? And knowing that you have the power to do that. Again, those of us who are recovering from people pleasing rooted in childhood trauma, it can feel impossible sometimes to say no to things. Because when we did before, we were met with punishment. And these things are real. So understanding that basis of why it feels difficult to say no, and also at the same time, your power for now at this age, with this knowledge that you now have, creating that buffer of time, as you mentioned, right? Taking the pause before saying yes, taking a moment, right? Do I really want to do this? Is this going to drain my energy? Do I need to tell this person I can't do this? Right? And even asking yourself, how will I feel after I do this task? Am I going to feel drained? Am I going to feel fulfilled? And letting that kind of guide your decision making process can be helpful too. Glenn Mazzini, Rushni Cope just shared yesterday. I think she takes two um, nights to sleep on something before she makes a decision, so that can be helpful too. Giving yourself like a definitive pause before you say yes. I need 2 business days before I can say yes to this, right? Even if it's just something that you repeat to yourself internally, that can be helpful because it can give you that sense of clarity before you move forward with something. United in grief, yes, journaling helps so much. It does, yes, it does. Thank you for sharing that. Great tool. You're welcome. You're welcome. The most important thing I am learning is that I can't care more about what you think than what I think. My life is mine to live. My choices are mine to make. Ooh, yes, that's powerful. Yes. My life is mine to live. My choices are mine to make. Ooh, yes. Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah, viewing your life, your wellness, your health as the most important things in your life, right? Because nothing else can be done without you, right? So all the energy that we pour into other people, we have to be here in order for that energy to be poured. And so we have to be the main focus. We have to be well, right? We have to preserve ourselves in order for any of these other things that we're doing to even happen. Um, so, yes, that's so important. And the last lesson to share, safe community is essential, right? So, not feeling like we have to heal in isolation, because that can be difficult, if not impossible. We need other people who feel safe, right? To reflect back to us that we're able to share things openly, that we're able to externalize what we're experiencing, which is a huge reason why the community of Black women YouTubers has been just so life changing for so many of us, because we're able to open up and share things that have kind of been like taboo in the past, right? Talking about toxic workplaces, talking about how we're navigating situations, kind of releasing this sense of like shame that we might have been carrying around these things, and realizing, oh, it's not just me. There are other people who are experiencing this exact same thing, and that can be so essential in healing. So we need people to witness what we're experiencing. Again, to reflect back to us. It's not us, it's the environment, right? It's the person. Um, and so healing is something that can involve co creation, co regulation. And if you're here live or watching the replay, I would love to know how community has been a part of your healing journey, if you like to share. As someone who is a healing practitioner, right, this is the work that I do, group healing programs, now as a facilitator, understanding different ways of how we come into safe spaces to help each other heal. I would love to hear anything you have to share around that as we learn together. Hello, Kiana. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. Yes. And so, let's make sure I don't have any more notes. Just to wrap up, and I thank you so much for joining me. I haven't been live in the evening in a little bit, so thank you for being here. Healing is not about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who you've always been, right? So, healing is not about becoming someone new, a new, improved version of you. It's about returning to who you were, right, before you went through the traumatic experience, and kind of taking those pieces of yourself into what I always view as kind of like a mosaic, right? And so we may have been through experiences in places that have tried to question our self-worth, that have tried to implant seeds of self-doubt to make us question our abilities ourselves, but to know that you can come out of that. And you can also go back and reclaim those pieces of yourself from that environment, from that person who tried to take it, right? That's not theirs to take. You can go back, reclaim those parts, and just as a mosaic, right? It becomes something even more beautiful, right? You can thrive. There's another chapter to your story on this healing journey. And so that is all I wanted to share, y'all. I appreciate you being here again. Thank you so much for your support on this YouTube journey. I would have never imagined if someone would have told me, I'm thinking like even a few years ago, that I would have made 300 YouTube videos. It has felt kind of like a fever dream at times, kind of reclaiming my sense of self, right? Getting my voice back, connecting with other people globally who have experienced similar things. It's been the most interesting journey that I could have never expected. And so I appreciate you all so much for liking, commenting, engaging with the things that I upload. I take none of it for granted. And I appreciate you all so much. I do want to say one last time, I am facilitating Rested and Restored, a 5-week journey, healing journey, starting this Sunday, November 9th. For Black women, we will rest, regulate, and restore together. And so there is a link to register on the screen as well as in the description section. And you can always reach out to me, hello@marissaprice.me, if cost is a barrier. Just put my email in the chat. There is my email. Oh, yes. Really appreciated this live stream and this conversation. I'll have to rewatch and take some notes. Thank you for this. I appreciate you being here. You're welcome. Thank you, Daniela, as always. Ask Beverly says, thank you, Marissa. I always walk away from these lives feeling a little better with a new nugget of helpful info. Thank you. Thank you for that. I truly appreciate that. Thank you. Colette says, so glad I made the live. So glad you're here. Please subscribe again to Colette Elizabeth's channel. She's going live, I think, tomorrow for First Friday live. If you're interested in healing from toxic job content, her channel is amazing. Yeah, restore. I think you just had a challenge too, Colette. Yeah, so restoring your sense of self-worth, recognizing your skill set, leading into self-love, all those things are on Colette's channel. Thank you for such a great live. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here, Sophia. And yes, y'all, I think that is it. I think I'll be back. Yes, I'll be back next week. But until then, I hope y'all have a beautiful weekend. And yeah, I think that's it. I appreciate you being here. If you're watching the replay, please feel free to comment if anything resonated so that we can learn from each other on our healing journeys. Yes. Okay. A 5-day personal vision and mission statement challenge. Yes. So that's on Colette's channel as well. Thank you for that. Awesome. Thanks. Yes, for your share. Absolutely. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you for being here. You're so welcome. Thank you for this. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Until next time. Thank you.